Hey y'all! So, in today's video, it's a bit of a difficult topic. As some of you know, in 2016, when I was an au pair, I actually was 3 weeks into being an au pair, my dad died. So, in today's video, I'm going to share points or tips on how to deal with grief as an au pair, because I know that even though I was privileged to go home and say goodbye to my dad, some people were not. Especially those who not especially, but during the pandemic, I know it was hard for people to go home and attend their loved ones' funerals. And so I just want to maybe share and hope that this helps somebody who's also an au pair, who's also so far from home and just feels like, whether it's been like 6 years, 2 years, 1 year, 3 days, and feel like, hey, I should be over this, or hey, I don't know what to do, I'm feeling these emotions and I don't know how to help myself, or I don't know how to have those who love me help me. Number one, I don't know if you're like me, but I'm pretty hard on myself. And so my first point would be to show yourself grace. And I had people around me, because I would say certain things, and I had people around me even when my dad died. Like, he had just died and I was already like, okay, cool, let's do what we need to do. And I thought that by he died in September, I thought that by October, November, I'll be kudos, it's gonna be great, that whole thing. And so I would say, show yourself grace. Like, you just went through a massive transition, and I can't imagine what it's like if you haven't gone home, to say goodbye. It's probably 10 times harder. I'm not saying if you have, it's easy. No, it's not. But yeah, I can't imagine. And so what I would say to yourself is, show yourself grace. Like, make sure that you're not being hard on yourself and you're not putting a time frame to it, because you know how they say, oh, what time heals, or time with time, it's something. I don't believe in that. I feel like you learn to live with it. And being this far, there are still days that I'm gonna be sad and cry, whatever. And sometimes I'll be like, oh man, he died in 2016, it's 2023 now, like, get over. Then I'm like, no, like, I loved him. And there's like a quote I read where it says, grief is love that doesn't know where to go, And so show yourself grace, give yourself time. It's hard being in a different country. It's not like you could just go to their house, or you could go to their grave sites and see, or be with people like your family or your best friends, where you can express or just hug them. It's a different country, and sometimes you feel like a weirdo, crying, or you feel weird to even be like, I want to go to my dad's house and just be in his house, or just hug his shirt, or you feel like crazy. So it's harder when you don't have access to that, or people don't know you. It's normal if I tell my best friend, if I'm like, yo, I miss my dad so much, I'm gonna go to his house and just sit in his house, or just do something that reminds me of him. For her, it's normal because she knows the journey and the process, versus people who either don't know you, or you just new to them and you just met them in your au pair here. And so give yourself grace and trust that you are gonna learn to live with it, as painful as it sounds. And I know this sounds so harsh and just not fair, but you are gonna learn to live with it, and just be kind on yourself. Be kind and be gracious. That's the one thing I keep wanting to say is, be kind on yourself. Cry when you need to cry. Give yourself grace. Don't be hard. Don't put a time frame to it. Another thing is, and I don't know if I said this earlier, but crying is not a sign of weakness. And I had to learn that over the years, because you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm crying so much, this is so embarrassing. It's not a sign of weakness. You have emotions and they need to go somewhere. So letting it out by a cry actually helps. Number two, even though I'm saying be gracious and be kind, don't avoid it, because I was a big avoider with this whole situation. Don't avoid it, because if you avoid it, and when I say avoid it, I mean I, for a while when I was here in 2016, basically pretended, even though I knew my dad died, that whole thing, it felt like he hadn't died and he was just in South Africa, and I put it out of my head versus dealing with my emotion. When I did go back to South Africa, I had to deal with those emotions. And even when people who love me tried to get me to deal with them, I would just push people away and just bottle it up until it came out in forms of me snapping at people, which is not good. But I would say speak with your family back home. Um, journal. Journaling was the best thing for me at that time because when my family went to bed, and this, I think that was like the hardest part for me when I was grieving, especially in the beginning, was I had them during the day, but there's a time period where, because South Africa is like 6 or 7 depending on the daylight saving behind, I mean ahead, there'd be times where they're gone to bed and I had no one to talk to. And like, let's say I would have like emotions or questions or certain things, and so I had to turn to journaling for those times, or just, and so I would highly recommend journaling also. And one thing that I still, and I always say to people, I wrote my dad this letter and I just expressed everything I felt with the process. And it was like I wrote it, and it was like one of the best things I could have done for myself at the time, because writing it out and hearing me read it back to myself almost like gave me the reality, but also gave me the, I don't know how I'm gonna live, but I know I'm gonna be okay. I don't know if it makes sense. And it was like, it was very therapeutic for me. And if you are a journaler, or you are somebody who likes to express their words, or just, I'm a thinker, and so having that on paper, I just wrote everything and I hid it away. Nobody's read it. It's like my letter. If you feel like you're afraid people are gonna read it, put it in a safe place, or like, um, and so I started getting into a habit of that when I just feel overwhelmed, when I feel like certain things are happening, or when I feel like, oh my gosh, she's missing out, whatever. I would write letters and I would just keep it. And it's like a way of communicating, because I don't go to the grave. I can't go to the grave. I've never been to my dad's grave besides the funeral. And so those are one of the things that helped me. Number 3, if you have a great host family, and I touched on this in the beginning about stuff being weird, talking to just random people here, but if you have a great host family, or even just great friends, because I have like a great friend here, that I feel comfortable sharing when I feel like my grief coming up, or when I just feel like overwhelmed, or I get triggered, because there's certain things, and in grief they call it like ambushes. Like I've been ambushed probably once or twice for certain things, and it's good to have that friend that's just gonna come alongside you and just cover you. There's no other way to say it, where I'm just like, I've had friends, I'm like, I don't feel like doing this right now. It's like, I want to be here. I just need a minute. And she'd be like, okay, cool, come, go to the bathroom. I sit, I cry myself out, because why? Maybe I smelled something like my dad, or I saw somebody who reminds me of my dad, or something, like just a random thing. And those are normal. They are going to happen. It sucks, but it's just like a reminder of your loved one. And so I would say, when those things happen, don't try to fight it by yourself. If you have a community around you, if you have friends, or your host family is amazing, say to your host family, hey, I just need like a minute. Like something triggered my dad, or I'm just missing my dad today, or I'm just missing my loved one today. Can I just have 5 minutes? And it's like crazy. It's just like 5 minutes. Or if you have a great host mom, like with Val, my previous host mom, she would just hug me. Like she could almost also tell when I was going through those things, because I was with them in 2016, and she would just come and be like, hug me, and she's like, your dad loves you. And that's all I needed. And I would like wipe my tears and carry on, like, like get on with my day, keep moving. But it's okay to say, I feel a certain type of way, and I just want somebody, I just want a hug, I just want to, like a love, whatever. Because as much as your family's there for you, like your physical family, they through the phone. I don't know if it makes sense. It's like through the phone. Sometimes like a physical comfort or a physical hug, whether it's from your boyfriend, your host family, or your kids. Now, I'm not saying be a weirdo and be like, I want a hug, I want a hug. I'm not affectionate at all, but I know when I'm going through that and I'm surrounded by people who love me, I know who's my safe space. I know who I can be like, hey, I just need a hug. Or not even I just need a hug. I just want to sit with you. Like, let's just sit and watch a movie. Let's just, like do those things. Try not to go through it on your own. That's like the overall message also. Like, yeah, try not to go through it on your own. Try not to bottle up your emotions and like hide it in that you hurting, you struggling, you feeling some type of way. And then the last thing I would say, and I always say this for homesickness and I say it for grief too, because I remember just like dwindling and like being sad and like, God, how is it my dad died? That whole thing. And I remember being like, just getting the sense of like, if my dad was here, he wouldn't want me to almost like not waste my life, but he wouldn't want to see me hurting. And even though I'm crying for him, I was like, I'm going to do something to make myself happy because I know it'll make my dad happy. And so I would do stuff like walking. I would go to find places with nice heights because I like looking over, like I like standing in high places to look down at places, that kind of stuff. Starbucks is always great for me. Walking, I just do stuff that makes me smile, no matter how big or small it is, because I know if I'm smiling, my dad is smiling. I know it can be a difficult time. And I know, as I said to you guys, that our physical families are not here to hug us and kiss us and walk us through it. But I highly, especially like in the beginning or just in general, I highly feel like when you need to cry, it's okay to cry. Cry, get the tears out, and then sit with someone who loves you and who you love. And if you feel like you don't have anyone to say it to yet, or anyone you're comfortable saying, hey, I miss my loved one, but you do have people you can sit with. So for example, let's say your host family, like I've never said, oh, I miss my dad to my host family. However, when I felt that way, when I felt like, oh, I would try stay downstairs with them longer because my host kids fun to be around with. They fun, they cool. I'll hang out with them. I'll do stuff with them. And I'll just like sit there and they don't even know that I'm going through it. But just being around people has helped me. And then journaling, I will journal, especially when I'm really feeling overwhelmed now. Like in the beginning, I used to journal all the time. But I would journal, I would read a book, I would take long baths. And mind you, every season is different. Like last year, how I dealt with it is different to how I do it this year. Like journaling has always been, I would say, the only thing that's been consistent, or telling a friend, well, not telling a friend either. But last year I would take baths. Like I would take a nice candlelit bath. And that was like amazing for me. And I would play music. I would play all the songs that remind me of him. And I would cry for a few minutes and be happy and smile and be like, God, I thank you for my dad, or I thank you that I had them. I thank you for the memories we have. And I would always try see the silver lining that I did meet my dad and I did, like those kind of things. And so yeah, I hope this brings you comfort, and I hope in everything I said, because I feel like I said a lot, that when you take away from this that you're not alone and that your feelings are valid, and that being an au pair on its own is a lot, or just being a foreigner on its own is a lot. And so adding grief to it makes it 10 times more a lot. But my door's always open. You're a conqueror, and your loved one loved you, and they're proud of you, and you are exactly where you need to be. Like when I started framing it that way, I was like, I'm gonna make my dad proud. Like I'm gonna make my dad proud. And that has also really helped me, because I know when I'm happy, he's happy. And that's been my thing. It's like, yes, I'm gonna cry and think, but I don't think he'd want me to be in bed, like, even though I wanted to, everything in me wanted to stay in bed for the rest of my life. But when I smile, he smiles. That's been literally my motto. Like when I smile, he smiles. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.